The forest of drift was unlike any other place in the galaxy. Tall trees stretched high into the glowing sky, their leaves shimmering with a soft light. Strange vines curled around the trunks, and the air was thick with the scent of alien flowers. Small creatures scuttled through the underbrush, their eyes shining in the dim light. Drift was beautiful, but it was also dangerous. In a quiet clearing near a sparkling stream, a Vulpine mother named Luma nuzzled her cub, Kiri. Kiri was small, with soft, silver fur that caught the faint glow of the plants. His eyes were wide with curiosity as he pawed at a glowing leaf. Luma watched him carefully, her ears twitching at every sound. She knew the forest held many threats, and she was ready to face any danger for her cub. Luma's sharp eyes caught movement among the trees. Her muscles tensed and a low growl rumbled in her throat. A pack of predators emerged from the shadows. They were larger than Luma, with bioluminescent teeth that glowed in the dark. Their eyes were cold and their movements were precise. The predators circled the clearing, sniffing the air, their claws making faint scratches on the forest floor. Luma stepped in front of Kiri, her body low and ready. She bared her teeth, growling louder. She would not let these creatures take her cub. Every instinct in her body screamed that she must fight, even if it meant she would not survive. Kiri whimpered behind her, sensing her fear and determination. The predators lunged suddenly. Luma sprang forward, dodging the first one and snapping her jaws at its flank. The creature yelped and retreated, surprised by her speed. Luma's agility was unmatched in the forest. She twisted and leapt, using the terrain to her advantage. Her tail lashed like a whip, keeping the predators at a distance. She fought not out of anger, but out of love. The cub huddled behind a small rock, trembling but watching. Luma's heart pounded. She could feel the predators closing in. Her sharp senses detected their patterns. They were clever, hunting in a way that required coordination. Luma knew she had to act quickly or risk losing Kiri. Just as one predator prepared to strike from above, a strange sound cut through the air. A sharp mechanical hum followed by a flash of light. The predators froze, blinking in confusion. From the trees, a human appeared. He carried a small device that emitted a beam of light, startling the predators. His movements were calm but confident. Luma's ears twitched. Humans were unpredictable. Some could be helpful, but many were dangerous. She watched closely as the man aimed the device at the predators. They hissed and growled but backed away, retreating into the shadows. The human lowered his device and approached slowly, his hands open to show he meant no harm. He knelt a few feet away from Luma, his eyes calm and curious. Luma did not move. She kept herself between him and Kiri. The cub peeked out from behind the rock, eyes wide. The human spoke in a gentle voice, soft and steady. Luma did not understand his words, but his tone carried kindness. He reached into a small pack on his side and pulled out a container. He placed it on the ground a few steps from them. Water, Luma realized. He left it and stepped back, giving space. For a moment, Luma hesitated. Her instincts screamed to run, but Kiri needed safety. The predators could return, and the human had scared them away. Perhaps, she thought, this human could be an ally. The night stretched on. Luma did not lower her guard, but she observed the human from a distance. He moved with care, scanning the forest, never threatening Kiri. His attention seemed focused on keeping the area safe. Luma's curiosity grew. He was different from the predators. He used intelligence and tools instead of brute strength. Kiri crawled to the water container cautiously. The human watched, smiling softly. Luma growled softly, a warning to her cub. "Drink quickly," she seemed to say. Kiri lapped at the water, eyes still wary. The human remained patient, showing no sudden movements. Luma noticed that he was not like the hunters she had faced before. His mind worked differently. Hours passed and the forest quieted. Luma's muscles ached from tension, but she stayed alert. The predators were gone, at least for now. She studied the human, trying to understand him. His presence was strange, but it was also comforting. Perhaps she could trust him, at least enough to survive the night. Suddenly, the quiet was broken by a distant howl. Luma's ears perked. The predators had returned more than before. This time they were led by a larger creature, its teeth longer, eyes sharper. It was cunning and more dangerous than any she had faced. Luma's heart pounded. She could not fight this one alone. Kiri whimpered, hiding behind his mother. Luma stepped forward, growling, ready to face the predator. She would protect her cub at all costs. Her fur bristled, her eyes fixed on the enemy. She could feel the predator's gaze, calculating its moves. It was a battle of wits as much as strength. The human noticed the new threat. He activated a device that sent a low-frequency pulse through the ground. The predator hesitated, confused. Luma saw the moment and seized it, darting to a safer position while keeping Kiri behind her. The human's tools gave her a small advantage, enough to plan her next move. Luma remembered a narrow ravine nearby. If she could lure the predator there, she could use the terrain to her advantage. She ran, glancing back at Kiri. The cub followed, trusting his mother's guidance. The predator lunged after them, but the human stayed close, using devices to slow it down. They reached the ravine. Luma used her agility to leap onto a high rock. The predator tried to follow, but miscalculated, sliding dangerously near the edge. Luma saw the opportunity. She leapt again, landing behind the predator and forcing it over the edge. It fell with a roar, disappearing into the darkness below. Luma panted, exhausted but victorious. Kiri ran to her, nuzzling her neck. The human approached slowly, kneeling beside them. He extended a hand to Luma, who hesitated. She sniffed it, unsure of his intentions. After a tense moment, she allowed Kiri to be held gently. For the first time since the night began, Luma felt a sense of relief. She had survived and her cub was safe. The human did not try to control them, only offered protection. Luma's instincts told her this was a turning point. She could learn from him, and perhaps they could survive together in this strange forest. The night grew calmer. The glow from the plants illuminated the clearing, casting soft shadows. Luma lay down, Kiri curled against her, and the human sat nearby, keeping watch. There was no need for words. Trust was forming in silence. Luma's mind wandered. She remembered the predators, the danger, and the fear, but she also felt hope. Hope that she could survive with the help of this human, that her cub could grow safely, and that the forest of drift, though wild and dangerous, could be a home. As the stars appeared in the sky, Luma closed her eyes for a moment. She knew more challenges would come. The predators of drift were clever, and the forest was full of surprises. But she also knew that she was not alone. Together with the human, they had a chance to face whatever the forest threw at them. The first part of their story ended with survival, but a new journey was beginning. Luma, the Vulpine mother, had fought for her cub and found an unexpected ally. The forest of drift would test them both, but she was ready. Her cub was safe, and she had learned that even in a wild world, courage, intelligence, and trust could create something stronger than fear. The forest settled into a quiet rhythm, the gentle hum of the glowing plants blending with the soft breathing of mother and cub. The human watched carefully, understanding the fragility of life in drift. Together they waited for the dawn, when new dangers and discoveries would greet them. Luma would be ready and her cub would grow, guided by her courage and the unexpected kindness of a human who had stepped into their world. The first light of dawn filtered through the glowing leaves of drift. Luma stirred, lifting her head and sniffing the air. The forest was quiet, almost peaceful, but she knew the calm could not last. Every sound carried a warning. Every rustle could mean danger. She glanced at Kiri, who was still curled up, eyes blinking sleepily. Her cub was safe for now, and that was all that mattered. The human, Ryan, was already awake. He sat a short distance from the den, scanning the forest with careful attention. He carried no weapons, only a small pack and a few tools. Luma watched him closely. His presence was strange, yet not threatening. He had helped her survive the predators of last night, but she could not ignore her instincts. She remained alert, ready to react if he moved in a way that seemed dangerous. Kiri yawned and stretched, stepping cautiously toward the water container Ryan had left the night before. Luma followed silently, her eyes never leaving the human. He smiled gently at the cub, keeping his hands low. Kiri drank quickly, then nuzzled his mother as if to check that she was nearby. Luma's tail twitched. Trust was not easy to give, but survival demanded it. Ryan moved slowly, careful not to startle them. He pulled a small device from his pack and pressed a button. A soft hum filled the clearing. Luma's ears twitched. She did not know what the device did, but she could see it cause the glowing plants to brighten slightly, making the clearing easier to see. The predators often avoided light, and this gave her a feeling of safety. The forest around them was alive with sound. Strange birds called from the trees, and small creatures scuttled through the underbrush. Luma's sharp eyes scanned for any movement that might signal danger. Last night had taught her that drift was unpredictable. She could not relax completely. Every moment required attention. Every decision could mean life or death. Rian crouched low and placed another small container on the ground. This one held food. Luma sniffed from a distance. The smell was unfamiliar, but it seemed safe. Kiri moved closer to investigate, pawing at the container. Luma growled softly, a warning to her cub to be careful. Kiri hesitated, then took a small bite. The human did not interfere. He waited patiently, letting them approach in their own time. Hours passed, and Luma began to see patterns in the human's behavior. He was cautious, always observing, never rushing. He seemed to understand the forest in a way that was different from her own instincts. He used tools to detect danger and create safety. He did not dominate the environment. He adapted to it. Luma found herself curious. Perhaps humans were not all threats. Perhaps some could be allies. The sound of movement in the distance drew her attention. A rustle in the trees made her ears twitch. She tensed, ready to defend her cub. Kiri pressed close to her side, sensing the tension. The predators were still near, though last night's pack had been driven away. Luma knew danger could return at any moment. Rian noticed her alertness and stood slowly. He scanned the trees, then placed his hand gently on his chest to show he meant no harm. Luma did not move, but she lowered her stance slightly. He was careful, intelligent, and observant. Perhaps he could help her protect Kiri from the dangers of drift. Suddenly, a loud scream echoed through the forest. Luma's fur bristled. A predator was near, but this one sounded different. It was larger, its voice carrying fear and power at the same time. Luma knew this predator could not be ignored. She looked at Kiri, then at Rian. The choice was clear. She would protect her cub, but she might need help. The predator emerged from the shadows. Its size was greater than any Luma had faced before. Its eyes glowed a dangerous red, and its teeth were long and sharp. It moved with purpose, searching for prey. Luma stepped forward, placing herself between Kiri and the predator. Her tail swished, her body tense, ready for battle. Rian stepped slightly closer, activating a device that emitted a low hum. The predator paused, confused by the strange sound. Luma saw the chance to act. She darted forward, moving quickly around the predator. Her speed and agility gave her an advantage. She could strike and retreat before it had a chance to react. The predator lunged at her. Luma twisted in the air, narrowly avoiding its jaws. Kiri whimpered but stayed hidden behind a rock. The predator was strong, but Luma was clever. She led it toward a narrow part of the forest where the trees grew close together. The predator could not maneuver as easily there. Rian followed at a distance, careful not to interfere too much. He understood that this was Luma's fight. His tools could help, but he would not dominate the situation. He activated small pulses of light along the forest floor, creating obstacles for the predator. Luma used these distractions to her advantage. The predator grew frustrated, snapping and growling. Luma stayed calm, her mind sharp despite the fear and adrenaline. She remembered the ravine nearby. If she could lure the predator there, she could use the terrain to defeat it. She darted through the trees, Kiri following cautiously behind. The predator charged after her, its eyes fixed on its target. As they reached the ravine, Luma leapt onto a high rock. The predator tried to follow, but the narrow space caused it to slip. Luma saw the opportunity and used her weight to push it further toward the edge. The predator roared, its body teetering on the brink. With one final push, it fell into the darkness below. Luma panted, her muscles trembling with exhaustion. Kiri ran to her, nuzzling her neck. Relief washed over her. The danger was gone for now, but she knew more challenges would come. Drift was full of surprises, and survival required constant vigilance. Rian approached slowly, kneeling beside them. He extended his hand toward Luma. She sniffed it, cautious but curious. The human's calm presence reassured her. He had not tried to control her, only helped when she needed it most. For the first time, Luma felt she could trust him, at least enough to survive alongside him. The cub climbed onto Luma's back, his small paws clutching her fur. Luma nuzzled him gently, then glanced at the human. He smiled softly, understanding the bond between mother and cub. No words were needed. Respect and care could be understood without speech. The day passed slowly. Luma remained alert, teaching Kiri about the forest. She showed him safe places to hide, how to recognize danger and where to find food and water. Rian observed quietly, never interfering, only providing support when necessary. His presence allowed Luma to focus on teaching Kiri rather than constantly worrying about predators. By evening, the forest grew quieter. The glowing plants cast long shadows across the clearing. Luma lay down, exhausted but satisfied. Kiri curled against her, sleepily watching the strange human who had become their unexpected ally. Ryan sat nearby, keeping watch. He understood the fragility of life on Drift. Every creature had value. Every action could affect the balance of the forest. He did not see Luma as a threat or a curiosity, only as a mother protecting her cub. That understanding created a bridge between their species, built on respect rather than dominance. Night fell again, and the forest came alive with glowing life. Luma listened to the sounds of Drift, alert but calm. She knew the predators were still out there, watching and waiting. But now she had an ally who could help, a being whose intelligence complemented her courage. Together they could face the dangers of this strange world. The cub yawned and drifted into sleep. Luma lay close, her body tense but her mind at ease for the moment. She had survived the first night and learned to trust in a way she had never done before. The forest of Drift was wild and dangerous, but it was also full of life, and she would fight to protect that life for her cub. Rian watched the mother and cub with quiet admiration. He had encountered many species across the galaxy, but Luma's bravery and intelligence were remarkable. She had survived against the odds, and she had done so with love as her driving force. He understood that this was not just a fight for survival. It was a lesson in courage and trust. The first day of their alliance ended with calm, but the challenges of Drift were only beginning. Luma knew that survival would require constant vigilance, clever thinking, and trust in the human who had entered their world. Together they would face the forest, its predators, and its mysteries. Together they would grow stronger. As the night deepened, the clearing glowed softly with the light of alien plants. Luma and Kiri rested, while Ryan remained alert, ready to protect and assist when needed. A bond was forming, fragile but real, built on respect, courage, and care. Drift was a wild world, but in that small clearing, survival was possible and hope had taken root. Luma's eyes closed finally, her body relaxing slightly. The predator of the ravine was gone and Kiri was safe. She had found an unexpected ally in a human, and for the first time she felt that they could face the dangers of Drift together. The forest would test them, but they were ready. The journey had only just begun, and survival depended on courage, intelligence, and the bond that was slowly forming between species. The morning sun rose slowly over the forest of Drift, casting golden light over the glowing trees. The air was fresh and carried the scent of alien flowers. Luma stretched her legs and shook her fur, her sharp eyes scanning the surroundings. The forest had calmed after the dangers of the previous night, but she remained cautious. Drift was a beautiful place, yet every moment held a risk of danger. Kiri bounced forward, excited to explore. His small paws made little sounds against the soft forest floor. Luma followed closely, keeping him within reach. She could not allow her cub to wander too far. The lessons of the night before were clear. Drift's predators were clever and her cub was vulnerable. Ryan watched from a distance, crouched near a glowing vine. He had gathered a few samples of plants for study, careful not to disturb the forest or the Vulpine family. He understood the delicate balance of life on Drift. Humans had often acted recklessly on other planets, but here, he wanted to learn. Observation and patience were key. Luma's ears twitched at the sound of movement. Small creatures darted through the underbrush, their glowing eyes reflecting the sunlight. She observed quietly, teaching Kiri to recognize which sounds were harmless and which might signal a predator. Kiri listened intently, mimicking her subtle movements and quiet growls. The bond between mother and cub was strong. Luma knew that Kiri's survival depended on her teachings, on his ability to learn quickly and trust her instincts. She also knew that the human could be a part of their survival if she learned to read his actions carefully. Rian moved closer, speaking softly. Luma could not understand his words, but his tone was gentle. He extended his hand, offering a small piece of fruit from a plant she had never seen before. Luma's nose twitched. The smell was unusual, yet it seemed safe. Kiri stepped forward, sniffing it, and took a small bite. Luma allowed it, realizing that the human's offerings could help her cub grow stronger. The forest suddenly changed. A low growl rolled through the trees, vibrating the ground beneath their paws. Luma's ears twitched sharply. A predator was approaching. This one was different from the pack they had faced before. Its movements were calculated, almost intelligent, as if it understood strategy. Luma's fur bristled and Kiri pressed close to her side. Ryan noticed the predator as well. He activated a small device that emitted a soft pulse of light, designed to confuse creatures that relied on senses other than sight. The predator paused, its glowing eyes narrowing, studying the source of the light. Luma used this distraction to her advantage. She stepped forward, placing herself between Kiri and the predator. The predator lunged, its claws slicing through the air. Luma dodged swiftly, leaping to the side. Kiri whimpered but stayed hidden behind a rock. Luma's movements were precise, calculated. She knew the forest better than any predator. Her agility and quick thinking gave her the upper hand. Ryan stayed at a distance, careful not to interfere directly. He understood that this was Luma's fight. His role was to support, not to dominate. He activated a series of small lights along the forest floor, creating obstacles for the predator. Luma darted between the lights, confusing the creature and buying time. The predator's growls grew louder, frustrated by its inability to catch Luma and Kiri. Luma's sharp eyes scanned for an opportunity. She spotted a narrow stream nearby with slippery stones. If she could lead the predator there, she could use the terrain to her advantage. She ran toward the stream, Kiri following cautiously. The predator charged after them, its glowing eyes fixed on its target. Luma leapt onto a rock, landing with perfect balance. The predator attempted to follow but slipped on the wet surface, tumbling into the shallow water with a splash. Luma used her strength to push it back further, forcing it to retreat. The predator roared, frustrated and defeated, before retreating into the forest. Luma panted, her muscles trembling with exhaustion. Kiri ran to her side, nuzzling her neck. Relief washed over her. They had survived another threat, but she knew that Drift held many more challenges. Ryan approached slowly, kneeling beside them. He extended his hand toward Luma, who sniffed it cautiously. She sensed no danger. The human had proven himself an ally, someone who could be trusted in critical moments. Kiri crawled onto her back, resting his small head against her fur. Luma allowed the human to come closer, though she kept her body between him and her cub as a precaution. The rest of the day was spent exploring the immediate area around their den. Luma taught Kiri how to climb small trees, hide in underbrush, and recognize safe plants to eat. The cub was eager to learn, his curiosity boundless. Luma guided him patiently, showing him that survival required both caution and courage. Ryan observed quietly, taking notes and recording the environment. He did not interfere unless necessary, respecting Luma's authority over her cub. He placed small containers of food and water nearby, ensuring that the family had supplies without intruding on their natural behaviors. Luma began to see that humans could be helpful without being controlling, and her trust grew. As the sun began to set, the forest changed again. Shadows stretched long across the glowing landscape and strange creatures began to emerge. Luma remained alert, her ears twitching at every sound. Kiri stayed close, learning from his mother's vigilance. The bond between mother and cub strengthened with each passing hour. A sudden rustle in the trees drew Luma's attention. Another predator was nearby, but this one moved with unusual intelligence. Luma sensed that it was assessing the area, looking for weakness. She growled low in her throat, warning both Kiri and the human. Ryan acted quickly, activating a device that sent a series of light pulses through the trees. The predator paused, confused by the sudden flashes. Luma used the distraction to circle around it, positioning herself between Kiri and the creature. Her muscles were tense, ready to strike if necessary. The predator lunged, but Luma anticipated its movements. She dodged gracefully, using her agility to avoid its claws. Kiri watched in awe, learning from his mother's quick thinking. The predator growled, frustrated by its inability to catch them, and retreated further into the forest. After the danger passed, Luma exhaled, her body relaxing slightly. Kiri crawled onto her back, nuzzling her gently. She licked his fur softly, calming him after the encounter. Ryan approached carefully, offering a small piece of fruit to Kiri. The cub accepted it without hesitation, learning that the human was not a threat. The night grew darker, and the forest glowed with the soft light of alien plants. Luma lay down, Kiri curled against her, and Ryan sat nearby. There was a sense of peace, though vigilance remained necessary. The predator encounters had taught them that Drift was unpredictable, but they could survive together. Luma's thoughts drifted to the bond forming between them. She had faced countless dangers to protect her cub, Yet she had found an ally in a species she had never trusted before. Humans were unpredictable, but this one had shown intelligence, care, and respect. Luma realized that trust could be given carefully and cautiously. Kiri fell asleep, exhausted from the day's lessons and dangers. Luma stayed awake a little longer, her senses alert. The forest was alive with sounds, and she listened carefully to every rustle, every whisper of wind through the glowing trees. Drift was beautiful, but it was also wild and dangerous. Rian watched the family quietly. He had seen many species across the galaxy, but the bond between Luma and Kiri was extraordinary. Their survival depended on courage, intelligence, and trust. Ryan understood that his role was not to dominate, but to support and learn. He had become part of a fragile alliance that could change the course of life on Drift. As the stars appeared in the sky, Luma closed her eyes for a moment. She had faced another day of danger, and had come through it with her cub safe. The forest would continue to test them, but she felt a sense of hope. Together with the human, they had a chance to survive, to teach each other, and to grow stronger. The night continued, calm yet filled with the potential for challenges. Luma's bond with Kiri strengthened with every moment, and her cautious trust in Ryan allowed them to face the dangers of Drift more effectively. The first true alliance between species was forming, built on respect, courage, and the shared desire for survival. By the time the moon rose high in the sky, the forest glowed with its gentle light. Luma rested, Kiri sleeping peacefully against her and Ryan keeping watch nearby. The day had brought threats, lessons, and trust. Tomorrow would bring more, but for now, survival and hope were enough. Luma understood that the bond with the human was fragile but powerful. It was a new kind of strength, one that combined the instincts of the wild with the intelligence of another species. Drift was full of challenges, but she felt ready. Her cub was safe, and their alliance with Rian promised a future where courage and trust could overcome fear and danger. The forest settled into a quiet rhythm, the glowing plants illuminating the clearing with soft, magical light. Luma, Kiri, and Ryan rested together, forming the first chapter of a story that would test the limits of survival, trust, and the bond between species. In Drift, courage and intelligence were equally powerful, and together they could face anything the forest had in store. The forest of Drift glowed softly under the rising sun. Luma stirred, lifting her head and sniffing the air. The night had been quiet, but her instincts warned her that danger could appear at any moment. Kiri lay beside her, still sleepy but alert. The cub's small movements reminded Luma of her responsibility. She had to keep him safe, whatever the cost. Rian was nearby, checking the forest with careful eyes. He had spent hours studying the terrain, marking areas where predators were most likely to appear. He moved quietly, respectful of the Vulpine family, observing without disturbing them. His presence was calm, steady, and reassuring. Luma had begun to trust him, but her vigilance never wavered. As the day progressed, strange sounds echoed through the trees. Small creatures scurried, birds called, and the wind whispered through the glowing leaves. Luma's sharp eyes scanned every shadow, every movement. Drift was beautiful, but it was unpredictable. Danger could strike without warning. Suddenly, a roar echoed through the forest, deeper and more threatening than any she had heard before. Luma's ears twitched sharply. She recognized the sound immediately. A predator, larger and more cunning than any she had faced, was approaching. Its eyes glowed red, and its movements were deliberate. This was no ordinary threat. Kiri pressed close to her, trembling slightly. Luma nuzzled him gently, then stood, her body tense with readiness. She could feel the predator's presence, calculating and patient. Luma knew she could not fight it recklessly. She needed strategy, patience, and courage. Rian noticed the predator as well. He activated a device that sent small pulses through the ground, alerting Luma to its location and confusing the creature. Luma studied the predator, analyzing its movements. It circled, searching for a weak spot, testing their defenses. She had no choice but to face it. Luma stepped forward, growling low in her throat. The predator lunged, and she dodged with agility, her fur bristling with tension. Kiri stayed behind a rock, watching intently. Luma's body moved with precision, each step calculated to protect her cub. She led the predator toward a narrow path lined with dense trees. The terrain gave her an advantage, forcing the creature to slow down and navigate carefully. Ryan stayed at a distance, monitoring the situation. He understood that Luma needed to take the lead. His tools could provide support, but the fight was hers. He activated small flashes of light along the path, creating obstacles that confused the predator. Luma used these moments to maneuver skillfully, avoiding attacks and keeping Kiri safe. The predator roared, frustrated by its inability to strike. Luma's sharp senses guided her movements. She remembered a nearby ravine, its edges steep and dangerous. If she could lure the predator there, she could use the terrain to her advantage. She darted toward the ravine, her paws moving swiftly over roots and rocks. The predator followed, its red eyes locked on her. Luma leapt onto a rock, landing with perfect balance. The predator tried to follow, but slipped on the loose stones, sliding dangerously near the edge. Luma saw the opening. She pushed with all her strength, forcing the creature further toward the edge. The predator roared, struggling to maintain balance before tumbling into the darkness below. Luma panted heavily, muscles trembling from the effort. Kiri ran to her side, nuzzling her gently. Relief washed over her. The immediate danger was gone, but she knew that Drift held many more challenges. The forest was wild and unforgiving, yet it was also full of life. Survival required constant vigilance, courage, and intelligence. Rian approached slowly, kneeling beside them. He extended a hand toward Luma, who sniffed it cautiously. She sensed no danger. The human had proven himself an ally once again, someone whose intelligence and care complemented her own skills. Kiri climbed onto her back, resting his small head against her fur. Luma allowed Ryan to come closer, though she remained between him and her cub as a precaution. The day continued with careful exploration. Luma guided Kiri through safe areas, teaching him which plants could be eaten and which were dangerous. She showed him how to hide and watch the forest, how to move quietly and listen carefully. Every lesson was vital for survival. Kiri was eager to learn, his curiosity bright and unafraid. Rian observed quietly, taking notes and making careful recordings of the forest and its creatures. He did not interfere unless necessary, respecting Luma's role as teacher and protector. His presence was steady, providing reassurance without taking control. Luma began to understand that humans could be allies without being threatening. Trust could grow if handled with care. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the glowing forest. The light changed, revealing hidden dangers. Luma's ears twitched as she sensed movement in the underbrush. Another predator approached, moving silently and cautiously. Luma positioned herself between Kiri and the threat, ready to act. Ryan activated a small device that emitted pulses of light along the forest floor. The predator hesitated, confused by the unusual signals. Luma used the distraction to maneuver, placing herself in a position to defend her cub effectively. The predator lunged, but Luma was ready. She dodged swiftly, her movements precise and calculated. The predator circled, testing her defenses. Luma remained calm, using her intelligence and agility to stay ahead. Kiri watched, learning from her every movement. The predator lunged again, and this time Luma leapt to a rock, landing gracefully. The predator tried to follow but slipped, stumbling back. Luma pushed it toward a narrow gap, forcing it to retreat into the forest. After the encounter, Luma panted heavily. She checked on Kiri, who nuzzled her for comfort. She licked his fur gently, calming him after the scare. Ryan approached, offering water and a small piece of fruit to the cub. Kiri accepted it readily, learning that the human was not a threat. Luma observed quietly, recognizing that trust was growing between them. Night fell over Drift, the glowing plants illuminating the forest with soft light. Luma lay down, Kiri curled against her, and Ryan sat nearby, keeping watch. The predator was gone for now, and the clearing was calm. The family had survived another challenge, but Luma knew that more tests awaited them. Drift was full of surprises, and survival depended on vigilance and intelligence. Luma's thoughts turned to the bond forming between her and Ryan. She had faced countless dangers to protect her cub, and she had found an unexpected ally. Humans could be unpredictable, yet this one had shown understanding, patience, and care. Luma realized that trust could be earned and that it could create a strength greater than fear alone. Kiri fell asleep against her, his breathing steady and calm. Luma remained awake a little longer, listening to the sounds of Drift. Small creatures scurried, birds called, and the wind whispered through the glowing trees. The forest was alive, and every sound carried meaning. Luma's senses were sharp, but for the first time she felt a sense of peace. Ryan watched the mother and cub quietly. He understood the delicate balance of life on Drift. Each species had value, and every action had consequences. He had learned that Luma's courage and intelligence were remarkable. Her survival instincts combined with her care for her cub were inspiring. He respected her, not as a curiosity but as a partner in understanding the forest. As the night deepened, Luma reflected on the day's events. She had faced a dangerous predator and protected her cub, relying on her intelligence, agility, and courage. She had also relied on the human's tools and guidance, which had complemented her abilities. This partnership, though fragile, was powerful. Together they could face the challenges of Drift and teach each other important lessons about trust, care, and survival. The clearing grew quiet. Luma rested, her body tense but her mind calmer. Kiri slept peacefully against her, and Ryan remained alert nearby. The bond between species was growing, built on respect, courage, and understanding. Drift was wild, but in this small space, survival and trust coexisted. Luma's eyes closed finally, though her senses remained alert. The predator was gone, the cub was safe, and the human had proven himself trustworthy. She had learned that courage alone was not enough. Intelligence, patience, and trust were equally vital. The forest of Drift would continue to challenge them, but they were prepared. Together they had strength that neither could have achieved alone. As the first light of dawn approached, the forest glowed softly with its alien colors. Luma, Kiri, and Ryan rested in the clearing, ready to face whatever the day would bring. The predator encounters had strengthened their bond and taught them valuable lessons. Luma's courage and the human's intelligence had combined to create a partnership that promised survival and growth in the wild, dangerous world of Drift. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new predators, and new lessons. But Luma felt ready. She had survived, taught her cub, and built trust with a human who had become an ally. Drift was unpredictable, but with courage, intelligence, and careful cooperation, they could face anything. The night ended with calm, the glowing forest casting soft light over the clearing. Luma and Kiri slept closely together while Ryan kept watch. The bond between species had grown stronger, built on mutual respect and understanding. The forest of Drift would test them again. But for now, survival, courage, and trust had brought peace to their small clearing. The forest of Drift was quiet as the first light of dawn touched the glowing leaves. Luma stretched her legs and sniffed the air, alert as always. Kiri stirred beside her, yawning and blinking sleepily. The cub's small movements reminded Luma of how much responsibility she carried. She had protected him from countless dangers, and now, with Ryan by their side, survival felt possible even in this wild, unpredictable forest. Ryan had been awake for some time, moving carefully through the underbrush. He collected samples of plants and observed small creatures without disturbing them. His presence had become a steady, reassuring part of their lives. Luma no longer saw him solely as a potential threat. She had learned that his intelligence, patience, and respect for the forest made him an ally, one whose support allowed her to focus on protecting Kiri and teaching him the ways of Drift. The day began with careful exploration. Luma led Kiri through the clearing, showing him the best paths and safe places to rest. She taught him how to climb small trees, hide in the dense underbrush, and recognize the plants that were safe to eat. Kiri absorbed everything eagerly, mimicking his mother's movements and listening to her subtle growls. Each lesson was a step toward independence, a preparation for the day when he might need to face dangers without her. Ryan observed quietly, never interfering unless necessary. He placed small containers of water and food nearby, allowing Luma and Kiri to access them at their own pace. Luma watched him with a mixture of curiosity and caution. She noticed that his actions were thoughtful and deliberate. He did not rush, did not try to dominate. Instead, he respected the family's space while offering support when needed. This understanding built trust slowly but steadily. The calm of the morning did not last. A rustle in the dense trees caught Luma's attention. Her ears twitched sharply. A predator was approaching. Its movements were slow but deliberate, each step calculated. Luma sensed its intelligence and caution. It was larger than any she had faced before, with red glowing eyes that pierced the light. She knew it could pose a serious threat to Kiri if she did not act wisely. Kiri pressed close to her side, instinctively seeking safety. Luma nuzzled him gently, then stepped forward, her body tense with readiness. She could feel the predator's gaze assessing her, looking for weakness. Luma knew that brute strength alone would not be enough. She needed strategy, agility, and intelligence to protect her cub. Rian noticed the predator as well. He activated a device that sent a low-frequency pulse through the ground. The predator paused, confused by the unusual sensation. Luma used this opportunity to position herself between Kiri and the creature, analyzing its movements carefully. She knew the terrain better than the predator, and that knowledge was her greatest weapon. The predator lunged suddenly. Luma dodged with precision, her body moving like water. Kiri stayed hidden behind a tree, watching and learning. The predator's claws scratched the forest floor, but Luma anticipated each strike. Using her agility to stay ahead, she darted around the predator, forcing it to follow her into a narrow canyon nearby. Ryan followed at a safe distance, using his devices to create obstacles and distractions. He understood that Luma needed to take the lead. His intelligence and technology complemented her courage and instincts, forming a partnership that neither could achieve alone. Together, they prepared to face one of the greatest dangers Drift had shown them so far. In the canyon, Luma's heart pounded. She could hear the predator's growls echoing off the stone walls. The space was narrow, limiting the predator's movement, and she used it to her advantage. She leapt onto a rock, landing with perfect balance. The predator tried to follow, but misjudged the distance, slipping slightly. Luma seized the moment and pushed forward, forcing the predator back toward the edge of the canyon. The creature roared, struggling to maintain balance. Its claws scraped against the rocks as it attempted to regain footing. Luma's muscles burned, but she did not falter. Kiri watched intently, learning from his mother's strategy and determination. Every movement, every decision was a lesson in survival. Ryan activated another device, creating flashes of light along the canyon walls. The predator became disoriented. Its focus split between Luma and the strange lights. She used the distraction to leap across rocks and position herself advantageously. With a final push, the predator lost its footing completely and tumbled into a deeper part of the canyon, disappearing into the shadows. Luma exhaled heavily, her body trembling with relief and exhaustion. Kiri ran to her side, nuzzling her gently. She licked his fur to calm him, reassuring him that the danger had passed. Ryan approached carefully, kneeling beside them and offering water and a small piece of fruit. Kiri accepted it without hesitation, learning that the human was a trusted companion. The predator encounter had strengthened their bond. Luma understood that courage alone was not enough to survive Drift. Intelligence, strategy, and the careful support of an ally were equally important. She had learned to trust Rian in moments of extreme danger, and that trust had saved both her and her cub. The rest of the day was spent in careful exploration. Luma guided Kiri to find hidden streams, safe resting areas, and edible plants. Kiri was eager to explore, but Luma remained vigilant. She had taught him to listen to the forest, to watch every movement, and to trust his instincts. The lessons were vital, for Drift was full of surprises and survival required constant awareness. Rian continued to observe, recording the forest's patterns and behaviors. He did not interfere unnecessarily, respecting the mother's authority and the natural flow of life. His careful presence allowed Luma to focus on teaching her cub, rather than worrying about external threats. The alliance between species had grown stronger, built on mutual respect and understanding. As evening approached, the forest's glow deepened. Shadows stretched across the clearing and small creatures became active. Luma remained alert, aware that predators could appear at any moment. Kiri stayed close, learning from his mother's vigilance. The bond between them had deepened, strengthened by each challenge they had faced together. Rian activated a small light device, creating a safe perimeter around the clearing. Luma observed the effect, noting how humans could use intelligence and technology without dominating the natural world. She began to see that cooperation rather than conflict could create strength. Trust, patience, and respect were just as powerful as courage and instinct. Night fell over Drift, the glowing plants casting gentle light over the forest. Luma lay down. Kiri curled against her and Ryan remained nearby, vigilant and calm. The day had tested them, and they had survived. The predator had been defeated, the cub had learned, and the bond between species had grown stronger. Luma's thoughts wandered to the future. Drift was full of dangers, but also of life and opportunity. She could see that humans had the potential to help protect the forest rather than harm it. Ryan's careful observation and respect had proven that cooperation between species could succeed. She felt hope for a future where her cub could grow safely, guided by both her wisdom and the intelligence of her human ally. The cub fell asleep against her, his breathing slow and steady. Luma remained awake a little longer, listening to the sounds of drift. Every rustle, every whisper of wind, every glowing plant carried meaning. She had survived because of her courage, her intelligence, and the careful support of an unexpected ally. Ryan watched quietly, understanding the delicate balance of life on drift. He had seen many species across the galaxy, but Luma's combination of bravery, intelligence, and care for her cub was extraordinary. He respected her, not as an experiment or a curiosity, but as a partner in survival. Together they had formed an alliance that combined instinct and intelligence, courage and strategy. The night passed calmly. Luma and Kiri rested while Ryan remained vigilant. The forest was alive, full of light and sound, but the clearing had become a safe space. The lessons of the day had strengthened their bond, teaching them that survival was not just about fighting, but about understanding, cooperation, and mutual respect. As the first light of dawn touched the glowing leaves again, Luma opened her eyes. She saw Kiri stretching and yawning, full of curiosity and energy. Ryan was nearby, preparing to explore another part of the forest. Luma knew that challenges awaited them, but she also knew they were ready. Together they could face anything drift presented. The forest stretched endlessly, full of life, danger, and beauty. Luma, Kiri, and Ryan had formed a small family, bound by trust, courage, and intelligence. They had survived predators, learned from each other, and built a partnership that promised a future of safety and growth. Drift was a wild world, but within its glowing forests, a new story had begun.